Gentleman from Illinois, Mr. Walsh.
Mr. Chairman and Mr. Secretary, thank you for being with us today. I know you've got a busy schedule. I can guarantee you of very few things in life, but I can guarantee you, I wish I could guarantee you of more, but I can guarantee you if you and I took a day and we spent the afternoon in my 8th district of Illinois and we randomly, just randomly knocked on the doors of 30, 40, 50, 20 small business men and women in my district, I can guarantee you they'd all say the same thing. The uncertainty is killing them. They see their government pass a piece of health care legislation that their government doesn't even seem to know what it will cost. How are they expected to factor it in? They're feeling overregulated, and they're feeling that there's huge trepidation about regulations they see coming down the pike. I can guarantee you if you and I knocked in my district on the doors of 5 small and community banks or 10, they'd all say the same thing. Government regulations are tying our hands. That's why we're not able to lend. I love listening to you. I always learn something when I listen to you. But is it at all possible that all of those businessmen and women in my district and those bankers, are they all misguided when they say they're overregulated, they're scared, there's uncertainty, and everything, and again, let me just be pointed here as I close, everything they see coming out of this administration adds to their uncertainty and their fear, to all of them.
I think I have a slightly different perspective, but I'll tell you my view. Absolutely, businesses, small businesses, are more uncertain about the future than they would have if you asked them the question in 2005, absolutely. And the biggest concern they have, and the one they talk about the most, and this is what all the surveys say, not our surveys, is say their uncertainty is about how much demand for their products is going to grow. They put that at the top of the list. That's been true for years now, and that makes sense. It's sort of a natural thing, because they're not going to invest or hire unless they have more confidence about what rate of growth and demand for their products are going to be. And even though we've had 18 months of growth, people understandably, given the pressures you're seeing in the economy today, gas prices, weather, Japan, a little concern about Europe, you see a few more headwinds now, so that's understandable. Now, it's also true that businesses always want less regulation, understandable, and banks would like to operate with less regulation. There's nothing unique in that.
But no, understandable, but is it correct?
Well, I think what's correct is that we have to be very careful, given the trauma caused by the financial crisis, to make sure that we have a financial system that is more conservatively managed. And I do not believe there is really a meaningful risk for small banks that Dodd-Frank itself is going to add to their regulatory burden. I think there is some risk, as I said, that examiners are going to overdo it a bit, maybe a little too cautious, tighten up a bit. And that's something that I think the Chairman of the Fed, the Chairman of the FDIC, other bank regulators are trying to lean against carefully, so there's more balance in that. But where there is concern about people overdoing the regulatory side, we'll take a careful look at that. But that's the way I would see it. And, you know, I know I haven't spent time in your district, but I spent a lot of time talking to people, and they say similar things. They say, banks say, we're not lending because we're regulators, which they often say. And we see businesses say we're more uncertain. And I don't think that's surprising given what this country's just been through.
So how do we give them certainty?
Well, I think there's a lot of things that we can do, and I think that just to speak to the issue of the day, I think it would be very helpful for Washington to come to agreement on a long-term fiscal consolidation plan, a reasonably growth-friendly fiscal consolidation plan, because I think that would demonstrate that the country has the capacity, country leaders in Washington have the capacity to try to make some progress in solving a long-term problem that is a bit of a cloud on the country. I mean, just to be honest about it.
I hear all the time from folks that, look, this recession, this crisis wasn't the president's. It was there when he came into office. This recovery is his. When you look at this recovery in historical perspective, and I know I'm running out of time, so you've got to be brief, we're not nearly where we need to be at when it comes to this recovery.
I agree with you about that, but I think this is an important question, Mr. Chairman. Can I just spend a minute on this issue? Because I think it's at the center of this big debate we're having about the country, and it's very important to understand that so as we think about what we can do about it. And I think it's important to recognize that you had a crisis caused by a country that was living beyond its means. Too much leverage in the banking system, people across the country borrowing way beyond their means. And when you have a crisis caused by that, then recoveries are necessarily, unavoidably slower. And why is that? When you build too many houses, you can have a long period where construction is weak. When people have to reduce the amount of debt they have to feel more secure about the future, they're going to spend less, be more cautious. When banks have to delever, so those create headwinds for the recovery that consign us to more moderate recoveries than we would normally have. Much more modest recovery is the reality we face today. The question is, how can we make it stronger? How can we make it better? And I think we can do things on the tax side by expanding exports, by doing a sensibly designed long-term fiscal plan, by being careful about the balance and regulations. We can improve the odds that we get more people back to work as quickly as we can. But most of what we're living today as a country now is the effects of those mistakes we made up in the run-up to the crisis. And if you look outside construction, you look beyond the banking system, you look beyond the sectors most directly affected by people being a little more careful about how they spend and borrow, the rest of the American economy, if you look at export performance, private investment growth, productivity growth, agriculture, manufacturing, high tech, this is a very resilient, very productive, very innovative economy. And we have a very good chance, we make some sensible judgments coming out of this, to emerge from this crisis stronger.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Secretary.